Because I think what we've also realized is that it's, as you said, also it's a cultural problem, which means it's everywhere around the nurse and her working life, starting from school and then integrating in even how she approaches other students, or how she even puts herself in a certain position at work, because a lot of it is what did we talk about, that the attitude of a lot of nurses is kind of just taking a lot of the beatings, or just accepting a lot of maybe abuse, and just dismissing it very fast. And that kind of, I think that it kind of already starts here during their school period, their internships. How do we approach those problems now to let just people in general learn or actually face something that it's not okay, or it's not normal, or I should be vocal about some of these things that are happening, because it's not okay to keep that going, and maybe we can do something about it, and maybe I can also be part of the change, and that will hopefully trickle through.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the next steps in this project, because this also connects to the new Bachelor of Nursing 2030 program, which is a national program where nursing leadership is one of the main focal points of the new nursing program. And one of the ways, and that really connects to what you're saying, is that the program says that nurses really need to be vocal and assertive about their role within the healthcare field. And I think that's going to be a major change for the nursing profession, because as you say, if we train our students to be apprehensive, to be responsive but not so much proactive, then it will really require a change from us as lecturers, as a program, but also as partner, how we're going to bring about that change, and to bring about more assertive and more proactive nurses that won't accept this kind of behavior in their internships.
So a group of nurse students had their own experience of, bad experience in their time at school, and the problems that arised were so standard that they really thought that this was an issue to address, because it was not only happening to them, it was happening to multiple students, and every year there's been stories coming out from students who've had a very bad experience during their internship. And they initiated the Brave Space idea, and actually approached some of the teachers of the course, the nurses course. My name is Christy Foster. I'm a junior researcher here at the Partner Up project, and I'm an alumni nurse at the nursing program.
There is a culture of, it's quite normalized within the study that students will experience any type of internship discrimination or,
power abuse.
Yeah. And it's not really discussed within the classes what the university facilitates for those students to either find help or where to go to. So I think there's a huge gap in that currently the Brave Space is filling. I'm Mamo Ali, and I'm also a junior researcher at the Center of Expertise Global Inclusive Learning, and this is one of the 2 projects I work on.
Also think that there was a group of students, I think they were with 6 of them, and they had the idea to create a space where they could share about the experience that they had. So that was the start from the Brave Space, and what you say, Andries, was that we started figuring out what are the needs and what can we do with the Partner project. And I also think that at the beginning, one of the things that also came up really quick was that we want to change something within the study.
Yeah.
Like cultural change or support teachers on how to support students. So we worked on that as well. That's, I think, what we are still looking for. My name is Winnie Rosenval and I'm a researcher at the Center of Expertise Global and Inclusive Learning, and I'm working in this nursing partnership.
And I think at the beginning it was more like, what is the issue that we are facing with these internships? I picked up from you and from a lot of our students as well that there is an issue of discrimination, racism, sexism, structural suppression. And I don't think we actually had the format right from the get-go. So I don't think we knew that we wanted to do safe space or brave space.
Hi, my name is Andries Hiskes. I'm a senior lecturer at the Department of Nursing. I'm also involved with the Partner Up project as a partner.
And it was clear for everybody from the beginning that it was very important to at least give a podium, a platform, a safe place where students could vent and just share their experiences. Exactly. That was the basic, the foundation of, okay, that's what we need to start from. And I think it was you who actually gave the example of what you do in your group sessions with companies, creating a safe environment, with like the rules for creating that safe space. And that's when we decided to eventually call it a brave space for students to speak up about their issues, struggles. Yeah.
I read an article about what a brave space is, and then we did one session about to look into, okay, what does it mean if we have to facilitate a session like this? And I think we had a lot of conversations about, okay, how are we going to do this? How are we going to create that brave space where these students can share stories?
And then we just started. We just started with the pilots, kind of, I think, just on the go. And now I think it's been a year maybe since we started our first real brave space, and we are still learning new things and have been discovering every session, like what works, what doesn't work, what do we need to focus on a bit more to really maintain the safety and to keep that the most important for students to feel comfortable sharing.
Also that, I'll speak a little bit to the camera, I think one of the things that I think is really good about Partner Up is because it's students and teachers working together, that you don't have all the answers as a preset. So you really need to sort of figure out together what are the formats that we as a group want to commit to. Rather than me as a lecturer saying, this is the format that we're going to choose and we're going to work with and this is what we're going to do. Sort of from the outset, we spent quite some time figuring out what is the format that really fits us as a group, and that's also relevant to the nursing department. So those were, I think, were sort of the two main things that we focused on in the beginning.
Well, I think personally the students at first really did feel comfortable right away when they realized that Christy and Mason both were alumni, and not even like long ago, but just recently, a year or two ago. So it's still very fresh. So I could see that the students did feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, and I think even if the school or the the teachers, when they do facilitate to talk about something, there is a feeling of dismissal that students get, their stories get kind of, they have the feeling that's what I've heard a lot, that they feel like their stories kind of being dismissed because nothing is really being done about it. And it's not that we are actively doing something to prevent these things from happening or to take action immediately, but just to really look at them and give them the time and give them our real sincere attention together with others as a supportive community, that they feel like, okay, at least my story is not being dismissed and I feel like I'm actually being heard, and kind of supported in my feelings. And that's also for the majority, I feel like, very important. So it's a group session where, for instance, we have a host like me. I host some of these sessions now with a group of students, preferably not more than maybe 15 max people. And we have a certain set of ways of how to start this session. So we explain to them what the session is about, why we're here, what they can expect. We also really empathize that it's anonymous if they, as they prefer maybe, that we're not going to communicate outside of this group. We have a few rules to start a session like this behind closed doors, quite literally. And then we start with an opening question once the group feels like, okay, we're informed, we understand. And we start with a question asking them, in what way, or have you ever experienced the feeling of being excluded in general, or have you ever experienced that feeling maybe during your internships? And that's almost quite literally the sentence that we say, and then from there students can start talking about maybe what that does to them, that question, what rings a bell. And usually it just naturally progresses into a conversation where slowly one after the other student feels comfortable to share, like, well, actually I can relate, or I want to share that what I experienced was really, maybe hurtful or difficult, or just this is how I feel about my experience. And yeah, usually, what happens, and I think that's the most beautiful, when others start to support each other and you can express your feelings without any judgment.
Was the question, how do we actually get students within the brave space? Because students do have very busy lives these days. They have their study program, but they also have side jobs, and usually a lot of other things going on. And I remember the first few months, actually, we really spent thinking about, like, how are we going to get students to join the brave space. And this was quite like a big issue for us as a research group to sort of tackle. And I also remember that sort of trying to get some of the teachers on board was also quite difficult at the beginning, before we really got to talk with them, because they didn't know what this was, and it was a new initiative. And I think what to me really changed it was we did this one session where we had testimonials, audio testimonials for groups, and to me that really changed the attitudes of a lot of our colleagues at the nursing program towards brave spaces.
The main thing for me personally is what we've discussed before, is not necessarily an opposition, but someone that cannot empathize with the other students, in a sense, that have had bad experiences because they themselves didn't experience it, and how that can make the conversation quite stagnant. It can make another student feel unheard.
We initially tried to see, what time can we go to classes and say to students, like, hey, after class, we're just right over there, you can walk in, and we'll start this concept called the brave space, where you can share your experiences. And nobody showed up. So we quite soon realized that we really needed to get the teachers on our side to open up their teaching, their agenda, and be able to maybe claim their time in a way, so that we could come in and actually do the brave space during the already scheduled school time, mandatory school time for students.
I think that another thing that we faced was because I think the brave space in itself is really working for the students, and it's something on it. Yeah, so it's something that is helpful. But what we struggled with, I think, was the support system from the university already. Like, what are the ways that we have to walk, or what are the people that we can reach out to support what is happening here? Because it's, I think, too much if you as an alumni and the others are responsible for what is happening in the group, because you heard a lot of heavy stories and things that went wrong, not only during the internship, but also how it was picked up by the teachers or the support staff. So that's something that I still think is a struggle. And we had a session as well, a conversation with some of the people that are in the support staff, so a dean, a psychologist, and the intern coordinator of the study. And but I think we still have to do things there to create like how do you say that, like a net support.
Yeah, and I also think one of the things that I really like about Partner is that it's very much a grassroots kind of movement. So it's lecturers and alumni working together, students working together. But I think one of the struggles we also have is how to embed the Brace Space initiative while maintaining the integrity of the original idea.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that we found, I think, is because Christy, you and Mason and Busha are hosting the Brace Space. And I think that really makes a difference to not have any lecturers present during those Brace Spaces. So I think that's also one of the things that we're struggling with right now. Is how to make the transition from this being a grassroots kind of thing to making it sustainable for the long term within the nursing bachelor program.
Yeah.
And I also think that there's an opportunity with this being copied into other contexts.
Yeah.
And I think that's already happening at the moment.
Yeah, there's been some people inspired, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.